Let's speak to our Home and Security editor, Mark White, because he's revealed today that the Home Office is spending £60,000 of our cash, the British taxpayers' cash, on things like TVs and video games for migrants. Tell us more, Mark.
Well, this is just one small example of the many wraparound services that there are for these migrants crossing the English Channel that, taken together, are costing many, many hundreds of millions of pounds, billions of pounds in the course of a year. This is, as I say, one example of entertainment packages, TV, satellite TV channels, the video games, consoles for Xbox, Nintendo, PlayStation and the like that are costing tens of thousands of pounds in one facility where migrants are only ever there for 24 to 48 hours after they land in Kent, having crossed the Channel. And of course, there will be many people quite rightly concerned about this and believing that why on earth should we be providing entertainment for people just landing when they're being processed and only waiting a day or two to go on to their next location where they will have TV and internet provided for them free as well. It's an additional cost that many people feel should not be borne by the taxpayer. And we've heard from the former chief executive of Border Force, Tony Smith, who's called it a shocking waste of money that would be counterproductive. He says, I'm afraid this is simply going to fuel the pull factor, the smuggling pipeline into the UK, and it will do nothing to achieve the reduction in arrival numbers that most people want to see. Another senior security source that I was speaking to said that it was crazy, that really what it amounted to was rewarding people for bad behaviour, for crossing the Channel illegally and then immediately being awarded with all of these television and video games packages on arrival. And they said, look, that the migrants, of course, have been camped out rough in tents on their trek through multiple countries to get to northern France, and then potentially for weeks, even months in northern France, and have managed quite well without television sets and games consoles there. So why should it be given to them the second they arrive in the UK?
Well, thanks, Mark. Mark White there bringing us that exclusive. Video games and TV consoles, a lot of you not particularly impressed, and not impressed with Keir Starmer's response as well. Claudie's called it waffling on, blaming his predecessors, didn't answer the question.
But
Yes.
a marked
He just
change
sort of-
in tone, though. Yeah, it's true. I mean, whether his plans will bring any benefits remains to be seen. But this is a huge change. If you think about how the Labour Party was talking just a couple of years ago, the idea of using the term asylum hotels, I mean, that was seen as a far-right concept, wasn't it? So they're shifting. Will it make any difference in time? We don't know yet.
We wait and see. Let us know. I know you're all sceptical out there.
And we're now joined by the Labour peer, Lord Steve McCabe. Lord McCabe, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Now, you will have just heard the words there of Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, saying that very few people are going to end up in Albania under this proposed agreement because our asylum grant rate is just so high in this country that so few actually fail that process. What do you say to that?
Well, I thought that was a kind of strange comment. If he's saying that these people are legitimate refugees who pass the asylum test, then of course they're going to be accepted in this country. But what we're interested in are people who fail the asylum test and who should be returned, but where there are difficulties in returning them to their country of origin.
Lord McCabe, he is sorry to interrupt, but he is saying that he thinks those rules are too lax, doesn't he? He thinks they're too gentle when it comes to asylum. So he's saying that too many people are going to be granted asylum in this country. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think there has to be a fair and international asylum test, and I thought that's how Britain normally applied their asylum rules. If he's suggesting we should create a whole new set of rules for asylum, I'd like to know what he has in mind.
Well, I think his point is probably, and not to put words into his mouth, that the UK's asylum grant rate is far, far higher than many comparable countries, France, Germany, Denmark, for example. So, I mean, Keir Starmer's right. There is no one solution to this problem, but one of the solutions surely has to be to look again at our asylum requirements and why our grant rate is so much higher than comparable countries.
Well, of course, one of the things that the Labour government are trying to do is to speed up the processing of asylum claims. That's a way of actually weeding out failed claims much faster. One of the problems in the past is that the lengthy period in actually getting round to processing the claims has given people additional reasons to remain here, like, for example, starting a family.
But is that not because the previous government put into law that if you arrived in this country illegally, for example, via small boat, that you would never be granted asylum, regardless of whatever country you'd be in, and then you'd be sent to Rwanda instead, whereas this government has decided that that should not be the law, and that if you arrive in this country, you have your case can be processed regardless of how you entered?
Well, I think the absurdity of that position is if you're genuinely fleeing a terror regime who are threatening to kill you because of your religious or political beliefs or whatever, you're hardly likely to arrive with legal documents and papers. They don't sort of line you up and say, you're welcome to leave, here's your visa to depart. So, of course, all people who are coming here are without, or the vast majority coming here are without proper documentation. The thing to determine is who is a legitimate asylum claimant and who is not. And the quicker we do that, the better. And then for
do you not think, Lord McCabe, that perhaps if you're crossing multiple countries, multiple safe countries, that perhaps you're no longer fleeing for your life? Or would you not agree with that?
Well, it depends why you're crossing multiple spaces. If, for example, it's an attempt to reunite a family where part of the family, maybe the wife and a couple of the children, have got to this country, but the husband and another child hasn't, then of course you can understand why they would cross more than one border.
Steve, let's talk about the politics of this, because there's been a marked change in the language and tone that Keir Starmer is using since the local elections. Of course, terrible results for Labour and the Conservatives, Reform making huge gains. There'll be many voters out there who are relieved that the Labour Party finally seems to be taking this issue seriously. But nevertheless, there are certainly some members of the Labour backbenches who are very unhappy with this change of direction. Do you think this issue could actually split the Labour Party?
Well, I mean, I think there are always going to be people in the Labour Party who are going to get very upset at any reference to immigration. But the reality, I think you said yourself earlier, Miriam, is that immigration has grown as an issue. It's an issue that affects people all over this country now, and it affects people actually from immigrant backgrounds themselves, whose maybe parents or grandparents came and settled here. So, you know, this isn't a kind of issue about one part of the country or about just white people. This is an issue that's affecting the whole of Britain. And I think people in communities right across the country, and to some extent that may have been reflected in the council elections, are asking the government to do more to control it.
Yeah, are people going to believe Keir Starmer, though? That's the issue. I mean, he's been pumping out all of this anti-immigration rhetoric or anti-mass immigration rhetoric. I mean, I don't know if you've had a look at his Twitter feed recently, but it's very tough, very tough. You know, being a citizen of this country is a privilege, not a right. We're going to crack down on X, Y, Z. We're going to restore control of our borders. This is very different from the Keir Starmer of just a couple of years ago. Or, I know, immigration didn't even feature in the top priorities of the manifesto.
Well, I haven't seen the Twitter feed, but I do agree that being a citizen is a privilege and not a right. And as I say, I think the climate has changed. I think people are recognising that the level of immigration at a time when our economy is not performing that well requires different approaches.
People have been saying this for years, though. This is what's so frustrating. People have been voting at every election for parties that have promised to bring down the levels of immigration, there is zero trust left on this issue. I mean, where do you think immigration should stand annually?
Well, I think that's exactly the reason why people are a bit sceptical, because I think if you create an artificial figure without any idea how you're going to get there or what the significance of it might be in terms of things that could change, for example, an event like Ukraine, then of course you're just saying, you're just putting out platitudes. What we need, and I think we heard it there from Keir Starmer, we need a series of measures that are workable, that are designed to have an overall impact on immigration, tackling the gangs and illegal immigration, tackling legal demand, but where it can't be justified because of, visa demands and things like that.
You can always find justifications, though, hence why, the visas skyrocketed. But Lord Steve McCabe, really appreciate you coming on to chat to us, Labour peer, of course, there.